Okay, so first we're going to start by just figuring out the key centers that we need for this piece. And actually we only need 3 different keys, and it's related to the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord. So here our 1 chord is F7. So the only key signature, the only key that can give us these specific notes is the key of B flat. Because do you see how that has an E flat in it and an A natural? That is the only key that can give us this chord. So we're thinking the key signature of B flat, or you can just think we need a B flat and an E flat. Okay, quickly about fingering. When you do scales on the piano, of course, you're probably familiar with that. You need a 1, 2, 3 and a 1, 2, 3, 4. So generally there's a single 4th finger in each octave. So if you can keep track of where the 4th finger falls, everything else falls in place around it. And in this scale, B flat is your 4th finger. So 4, 1, 2, 3. There's a logic to this because do you see how I'm on a black note, so there's room for my thumb to cross under again. Okay, so that's our chord associated with the F major scale. Okay, think about the 4 chord, the B flat 7. The only key signature that can account for this scale is E flat major, which has 3 flats, B flat, E flat, B flat, and A flat, and has a D natural in it. Okay, so we're doing an E flat major scale, or 3 flats, B flat, E flat, and A flat, but we're starting it on B flat. Okay. And I'm a fan of playing the scales everywhere on the piano. Play them up high, play them down low. You want to just get used to be able to play them anywhere at any time. You can practice it in your left hand. The classical piano thing of doing hands in parallel motion is not really that relevant for jazz skills, so I wouldn't spend too much time on it, at least at this point. Okay, now the fingering of the B flat scale. Fingering gets weird when we're starting on a black note because we never start with our thumb on a black note. But I want to tell you that in this scale, just like the previous one, your 4th finger is going to be on B flat. So I'm going to start here on B flat. I'm going to walk down the scale. 4, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. If I were continuing down, I would go to 4. Okay, but if I'm starting the scale, I'm just going to start on 2 because it's easier to just go 2, 1. Okay, so just that first note is different to make it easier to start, and then it's 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's talk about C7. Okay, the only scale that works for this one is the F major scale. It's the only key signature that has B flat and E natural, which are 2 important notes for this chord. So this one has a single flat, it has B flat. Okay, and guess what? Again, our 4th finger is going to fall on B flat. So for this one, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. I just realized I'm playing off the edge of the keyboard up here. I'll adjust the camera for the second part of the video so we get the full keyboard. Here's a technique, trick, or tip for playing these scales. We can think about in this scale we just did. You know, we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So one thing you can do is block those units together, and you can go. okay? That way your hand is in the spot, and you can just go, you kind of roll your hand through the notes. Another thing you can do, a way to just break that a little further, is you can do thumb and the other notes of the cluster. That just gets your hand in the spot, and you just roll through. Okay, so we've got 3 scales. We've got F7, which has 2 flats, B flat and E flat. Then we have the B flat 7, which adds an A flat to that, so B flat, E flat, and A flat. And then C7, which has the single B flat in it. Okay, so we're at the key of F. Our 1 chord has 2 flats, and when we go to B flat, we add an extra flat. Then we come back to F. We go to C, we take away a flat. All right, so we start it with B flat and E flat, and then we go to B flat, E flat, A flat. Then we're back to B flat, E flat, and then we go to just B flat, and then we're back. It circles around. For each of these scales now, I'm going to give you some patterns to play through them. I mean, you want to get good at playing the scales themselves up and down, but a jazz improvisation is just not a scale up and down. It's using little bits of the scale and different kinds of melodic patterns. So the first one we're going to do is going to go up a third and down a step. Okay? So if we're with our F7, okay, we're going to go. And again, we're keeping the key signature of 2 flats. And then when we descend, we'll turn it upside down. Okay, and I'm sort of making up the fingering as I go. Just kind of, you'll encounter little patterns of fingering that will become ingrained, if that makes sense. What I would suggest for you when you start is go slowly and experiment and find a fingering that kind of lays under your finger and gives you good opportunities to cross under. Okay, so that's up a third, down a step. The next thing we're going to do is up a triad on each note of the scale. So we on F, and then on the second note of the scale, G, a way to get ready for that is to just walk up the triads of the scale. Because if you're doing that, if your hand is in this spot, all you do is you just roll through it. You can actually do it really fast if you're used from going from chord to chord. So. So up in triads and down in triads. Now, last one we're going to do is 7th chords. Descending. So we did scales, we did up a third, down a step, we did triads, and we did 7th chords. Let's do all of that now on the other 2 scales. So let's do B flat. Okay, here's thirds. Remember the A flat. Descending. Let's try the triads. If you want to try to play along, we'll go 1, 2, like that. So ready, go. We'll do one octave. Now we're going to descend. Okay, we can also do seventh chords. Let's go one, that, ready, go. Descending. Okay, and you can do that up and down many octaves. I just did one octave here to show you. Last one is C. With the single B flat, we're going to do thirds. Descending. We got triads. Descending. Okay, so if you remember that B flat is what you need to keep track of, everything else is white notes. Okay, when you're in the F7, you need B flat and E flat. Everything else is white notes. And when you're on the B flat 7, you need B flat, E flat, and A flat. Okay, so that's a series of exercises to get us fluent and fluid, technically, with the three keys that we need to play through this F blues form in order to respect each individual chord and its sort of tonal center. Okay. In the next section, we're going to take small little bits of each of these things and do them in a way that we can plug it into the form so that we can play through every single chord in the form in time with little patterns that are going to lead us through, and those patterns are all coming from these keys. Okay. So we're going to do that in the next section. I'm going to pause this and take a minute to adjust my camera so we get the full keyboard. Okay, we're back. I have adjusted the camera so you can get the top note. Can't quite get the bottom note, but I'm not going to go down that low anyway. So now we're going to take what we learned with those scales and we're going to plug it into the form. Okay, so essentially when we have the F7 chord, which is measures 1, 3, 4, measure 7, and measure 11, all of those times we're using that the key signature of 2 flats. When we have B flat 7 in measure 2, 5, and 6, that's our key signature. And then in the last line, the G minor 7 to C7, for both of those we're using the C7 scale. Okay. For the D7, that one is actually still part of the G minor 7 to C7, so we're going to use 1 flat in there, but we're going to add the F sharp so that we get the D7 quality. Okay. Any of you who, if you're classical people, if you know scales in G minor, you could have G melodic minor. That's actually the scale that we're going to be using in that spot, except we're going to start it on D. Okay, so we're going to think of that as part of the C7 scale because it has the E natural and the B flat. We're just adding in the F sharp to make the chord the proper quality. Now, you can use the F natural there. Barry Harris and Charlie Parker do it a lot, but we'll talk about that later. Okay, so what we're going to do is a series of patterns that we're going to plug into every measure, and they're going to be based on the underlying scale. So if you look at this first one, this pattern is called 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So for F7, we do the first 5 notes of the scale, and then B flat 7, and then back to F7. And often if it's the same chord twice, I'll descend the second time, but you can do it ascending both times if you want. And then B flat, or descending, then F7, then D7. Essentially, it's the first 5 notes of the major scale, or the 7th scale. And now, here, for G minor, we're thinking the key signature of 1 flat, so we've got the B flat in there, and then C7. Okay. Now, for these last 2 measures, we're still going to play these 4 chords, 2 beats each, but for purposes of what we're doing in the right hand, think of the right hand as 1 measure of F7 and 1 measure of C7. Okay, so we're going to play a measure of F7 over F moving to D, and then we're going to play a measure of C7 for G moving to C. All right, and this is an idea coming from Barry Harris, who I'm going to talk about more later as well. So last 2 measures. Okay, so here it is in time. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's one of them. The next one we're going to do is the triad for each chord. So if you think about the 5 notes, just leave out the 2nd and 4th notes. And we get the triad associated with each chord. And we're going to play it in a rhythm like, so like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you want, at the very end, on those last 2 measures, you can do every single chord. You just have to change the pattern so it's only 2 beats. So we could come to the end, last phrase, if you want to do all of them. Okay? Although the other one I think is more practical for purposes of improvising. Okay. So we've done the 5-finger pattern. We did a triad. Now we're going to do a 7th chord on each of these. And then B flat, okay, D7, G minor 7, C7. All right, so here's the entire form. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, in the last 2 measures, if you want, you can. Okay, but the single chord for each measure is perfectly fine. The last new thing here we're going to do is we'll do the scale on each of these. But to give us time, since there are 8 notes and there are 8 eighth notes in each measure, we're going to stop on the 7th. And this is also a modified version of a Barry Harris idea, but we're going to go up to the 7th. So we'll go 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we stop there on beat 4 on the 7th of the chord. That gives us a second to move to the next chord. Plus, if you think about it, that is the same thing as in quarter notes with a passing note on each. Okay, so it has the chord embedded in it with 1, 3, 5, and 7 falling on the beats of the measure. All right, so we're going to go and then B flat, and then back to F. And then let's come down. Back to F. Now here's this D7 chord. We want to think of this as being part of the C7 scale, so we want E natural and B flat, but we're going to add in the F sharp as an extra note. So it has the B flat in it. Now the G, again the key signature of 1 flat, C7, and then so here it is in time. 1, 2, 3, 4. I would suggest when you play all of these to not swing it too heavily. In fact, almost playing it straight or just slightly swung from straight is probably the best thing. You want to get so you can play these really evenly, because when you go fast, the eighth notes, the swing eighth notes, even out to almost perfectly even. And if you've programmed into your hand to swing it all the time, you're going to have a really hard time taking that out when you want to play faster. You can always add the swing in, but if it's programmed into you that that's how you have to play it, it's going to be difficult to take it out. So I'm playing these almost straight. Right? And when I'm improvising over this, I'm not excessively exaggerating the swing nature, especially at a higher tempo, like 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are almost straight eighth notes, right? Very close. It's more of an articulation rather than a long, short kind of feel. All right, so we've done all of these patterns. We've done the 5-finger, did the triad, we did the 7th, and we did the scale. Now, so far, when we had the same chord for 2 measures, we did up one time and down the other time. You can do all of these things and do it the opposite way. So rather than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, do it upside down. Okay, so that's really useful, and you can mix them. You could do some up and some down. In fact, you can even mix all of the different things. You could give yourself a challenge that you're going to do the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the triad, and then the 7th chord, and then the scale, one after another. So you could go. Right? So just kind of moving through them haphazardly. Because when you're improvising, you want to be able to draw from all of these things freely at any time, anywhere on the keyboard. You're not going to do one idea and repeat it over every chord. The last thing I want to do with this is what I call the continuous scale exercise. And this works really well in this key in particular because for all 3 scales, the 4th finger falls on B flat. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to play the form with the left hand, and we're just going to start low and play a scale up as high as we can go, and then come back down, and then come back up again, okay? And we're just going to change midstream to the other key signature as the chord changes, okay? I'm going to start it slowly on quarter notes so you can see what I'm doing here. So I'm starting with the F7 scale, 2 flats. Now I see I'm going to add the A flat. It's like I'm plugging in the new key signature. Okay, you can do it in quarter notes. I think it's more effective to do it in eighth notes. that kind of thing is really useful when you're playing a solo and you want to cover a lot of ground and have it change to reflect the chords as you're ascending. Let me just play a little bit to give you an example. Let's see, I'm just going to start it. Okay, so and through that ascent, I switched and I added in the A flat when it was appropriate, and I took it away when the chord changed back. So I would suggest you try all of these over all of the chords, these different patterns, combine them in different ways, and then try improvising and see if these patterns just kind of creep into your improvising. Okay, so we've added a lot now, and also, I mean, you can still not even think of any of these patterns and just think over F7, you got 2 flats. Now we got 3 flats. Back to 2 flats, 3 flats. Back to 2 flats. 1 flat. And especially if you're paying attention to, you know, when we move from F7 to B flat, A changes to A flat. If you focus on trying to get to that note, when you change from one to the other and back, your line is going to start sounding a lot more like bebop or like a legit, more experienced jazz improviser. All right, so that's all for this lesson. I actually had other things I was going to cover, but the lesson was going to end up being like 45 minutes long. So I'm going to cut that here. This is going to be the first round of improvisation over this F blues form. Next lesson, I'm going to delve into voicings, like what you can do with voicings through this chord progression. And then that will be lesson 4. Lesson 5, I'm going to come back to improv and talk about some Barry Harris improvisation ideas. Lesson 6, we're going to talk about bass lines. And then lesson 7 will be improv again, and we're going to look at some Charlie Parker solos and Barry Harris solos and pull some of those ideas out into our lesson and into our playing. All right, so again, I really suggest you listen to a ton of bebop players. Listen to the Charlie Parker recordings of Now's the Time and Billy's Bounce. Listen to the Miles Davis recording of Straight No Chaser, especially that Red Garland solo in it. And yeah, and be inspired by the masters. And if you hear an idea you like, steal it. I stole an idea from a Red Garland solo, the Straight No Chaser solo. And that's a permanent part of my repertoire now. In fact, sometimes I probably play it too much, but it's too good. So you wanna, if you hear an idea, you want to be able to take it. There's another one I took from a Barry Harris solo. He plays this. So in the form, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. When he's going from the 4 chord back to the 1, he goes, which is just a beautiful line. And we're going to talk about that one a few lessons down the road and some other ideas like that. All right, so happy practicing, and I hope you found some value in this. And if you wouldn't mind hitting like and subscribe and maybe sharing this with people or leaving a comment, that would all be terrific. So thanks, everybody. See you in the next one.